You know, there's a very specific kind of behavior that I think, well, that most of us do, usually when we're absolutely sure no one else is watching.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
It's the kind of thing you would just never, ever admit to. I'm talking about walking into a completely empty room and saying something out loud.
Right.
And I don't just mean, muttering, "Where are my keys?" or something. I mean speaking actual full sentences
Yeah.
directed at, well, at nothing. Or, more specifically, at someone who just isn't there.
You're speaking into the void, and you wait for a response, don't you? Even for a second.
Exactly. You pause, expecting a laugh or a comment, and there's just dot air. And if you catch yourself or if someone walks in on you, you feel a little embarrassed, right?
Hmm.
We file it under irrational behavior. But
Hmm.
what happens when you take that universal human quirk and you layer a profound earth-shattering loss on top of it?
Well, then it stops being a quirk. It stops being embarrassing and becomes a survival mechanism. It turns into a lifeline.
That is exactly what we are digging into today. We are doing a deep dive into Chapter 4 of Daniel Astoria's book, Riding the Waves of Grief.
And the chapter has a title that really stops you in your tracks. I'm talking to no one.
Which sounds bleak,
Oh.
I'll admit. But as we went through it, I was surprised by how functional and strangely warm this behavior actually is.
It is. And for anyone listening who has ever lost someone, a partner, a parent, a friend,
Mhm.
and found themselves talking to a photo or saying goodnight to an empty chair, this is going to be incredibly validating.
And what I love about this source is the range. I mean, we're going to talk about profound emotional vulnerability, sure.
Yeah.
But he also weaves in references to Mel Brooks, Kevin Costner, C.S. Lewis.
It's a very unique mix. It grounds the grief in the real world, the world of movies we all live in. It reminds us that grief happens in the living room, not just in therapy.
So let's set the scene. This chapter really revolves around one specific object. Tell us about the crystal, because this isn't just a standard photo in a frame.
No, it's quite specific. It's a 3D glass photo. You've probably seen them. These laser-etched blocks of solid crystal where a 2D photo is sort of floating inside in 3 dimensions.
Almost holographic. And the photo itself, it represents a very particular moment in time, doesn't it?
A very particular moment. It's an image of the author, Daniel, and his late wife, Natalie. And the context is it's heartbreaking. He explains it was taken during a recovery window.
A false dawn.
Exactly. She'd been very sick, but she had bounced back. She was gaining strength. So he had this block made as a surprise for her, and he had it inscribed with "Forever Love."
And here's the detail that really matters, right? The thing that gives this object its power.
Yes. She saw it.
Why is that so important?
Yeah.
That she saw it before she died.
Because it distinguishes it from a memorial. It's not something created after the fact to remember her. It's an object that existed in the timeline of their relationship. She held it, she saw it, she told him she liked it very much.
So it's a witness to their life, not just her death.
Precisely. It anchors it to her living memory.
So she passes away. And now this crystal block sits on a bureau in his bedroom. And it becomes the focus of a very strict daily routine.
Ritual is the right word. It's not casual. His brother actually bought him a light-up base for it, so the image glows when it's on.
Which must make it feel even more present.
Right. So every single morning, the moment he gets up, he walks over, turns that light on, and says, "Good morning."
And every night.
Every night, before sleep, he turns the light off and says, "Good night." It's the bookends of his day.
And this isn't just for a week or two. This isn't the immediate aftermath.
No, he explicitly states he's been doing this for 18 months without missing a single day.
18 months. That's over 500 days, 500 mornings of greeting a piece of glass, and 500 nights of saying goodbye to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's pause here. Because if you hear that out of context, 500 days of talking to a glass block, the immediate reaction is probably concern. You think, is he stuck? Is this unhealthy?
It's the natural question. But what makes this so fascinating is that Astoria is painfully self-aware. He's not illusional. He writes, and this is a direct quote, "I know it's an inanimate object. I understand that it is not her."
So he's got this internal conflict. His logic is fighting his emotion.
It's a complete tug of war. Intellectually, he knows it's just glass. It can't hear him. But emotionally, he says, "I cannot stop doing it." The urge just overrides the logic.
He actually uses a movie reference to explain the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the movies, Young Frankenstein was not what I was expecting.
Me neither. Mel Brooks is not usually on the grief counseling syllabus, but it's a classic.
For those who haven't seen it, what's the connection he's making?
So he and Natalie weren't into, like, real horror movies. So
Mhm.
watching Young Frankenstein was their Halloween thing. The scene he points to is with Frau Blucher.
The very intense housekeeper.
Right. And there's this running gag where she's obsessed with the late Baron von Frankenstein. She's alone with his portrait. She kisses it, whispers goodnight, and...
The horses neigh in terror.
Exactly. It's pure comedy. It's supposed to be ridiculous. But Astoria watches that scene now, and he sees something completely different.
He sees himself.
He does. He realizes that to the outside world, whispering goodnight to a picture looks absurd. It looks like the horses should be neighing at him, but from the inside, it's an act of desperate connection. He realizes the character isn't just crazy. She's lonely.
So why does he get solace from it? If he knows it's just glass, why does it help to say good morning?
Because when he speaks to it, he can hear her respond. And this is about auditory memory. After years with someone, your brain builds this incredibly detailed predictive model of them. You know their exact tone, their inflection.
You know exactly how they'd say good morning back, whether they be grumpy or cheerful.
Precisely. So when he says the words, his brain automatically fills the silence with her voice. He's basically hacking his own brain to simulate her presence.
Wow, that's powerful. Using his voice to trigger the echo of hers.
But he also admits there's a danger there. He calls it a slippery slope.
Right, because the ritual is supposed to be contained, morning and night. But he finds himself wanting to talk to it during the day.
And that's where the simulation gets more complex. He imagines making funny comments to her. Something happens at work, and he immediately thinks of a witty remark to tell her.
And he knows exactly how she'd react.
Down to the micro-expression. Whether she would laugh or give him that look when a joke flopped.
We've all had that.
Yeah.
You can practically see their eye roll before you finish the sentence.
Exactly. But for him, it's so strong he starts having full mental conversations. He'll anticipate her response, then he'll counter with his own, then anticipate her rebuttal, and suddenly he's 5 minutes into a dialogue where only one person is in the room.
He even catches himself laughing out loud sometimes.
Which is beautiful, but also terrifying for him. He says there's a difference between keeping someone's memory alive and carrying on a conversation with an inanimate object. He feels like he's walking a tightrope.
It seems like a very thin line.
It is. But it shows how much space she occupied in his neural pathways. When that person is gone, the brain doesn't just delete the software. It keeps running the program.
So we've talked about the auditory part, but he brings up another dimension to this. It's purely physical. And again, he uses a movie,
Hatfield's and McCoy's.
the Kevin Costner miniseries. Tell us about the scene.
So there's a moment where Kevin Costner's character is at a grave, talking, pouring his heart out, and just before he leaves, he rests his hand on the wooden cross and just rubs it gently.
And Astoria says that before his loss, he would have just seen that as good acting.
Right. Nice touch, Costner. But now he understands the visceral need behind that gesture, because he does the same thing with the crystal photo.
He talks about placing his hand on the cool, hard surface of the glass.
Yeah.
And I found it so poignant that he notes the glass feels nothing like her.
That's the tragedy of it, isn't it? The glass is cold, hard, sharp. It's the opposite of human skin. It lacks all the warmth.
And yet he says the gesture feels natural and right.
It's tactile validation. Even if the texture is wrong, the act of touching something grounds the grief. We need touch. If you can't hold the person, you hold the symbol.
This leads us into what I felt was the most heartbreaking part of the chapter. He pivots from the object to the idea of identity, who he is now, and he brings in C.S. Lewis.
A Grief Observed. Probably the most honest book on grief ever written.
The quote he paraphrases, it really hit me. The idea that when you lose your partner, you don't just lose them. You lose the person in yourself that only they could bring out.
It's such a profound realization. We think of our personality as fixed, but it's not. We're different people with different people, our spouse especially.
Relationships create each other.
They do. There was a specific version of Natalie's Daniel that only existed when she was there to see him. When she died, that key was lost.
So that version of him is essentially locked away.
It starts to fade. He misses the man he was with her. He can't access that part of himself alone.
And he shares this really vivid story about trying to get that man back just for one night. The Christmas story.
It really paints a picture. He talks about their tradition. They'd go to downtown Disney, to this one hotel lobby with a huge Christmas tree and a roaring fire.
And they would just sit there.
For hours, eating snacks, talking. It's so simple, but those are the intimacies you miss the most, you know? Not the big trips, but the quiet moments.
So on her birthday, after she passed, he decides to reenact this.
But not at Disney. He goes to his parents' empty house. He just sits by their Christmas tree alone
And he talks.
for hours to no one. He tells her about his work, his frustrations, his hopes, and again, he's visualizing her.
He could see her smirking when she disagreed, or picture her enjoying a cookie. He just willed her into the room.
And this is the core paradox of the whole chapter. He describes that evening as lovely and terrible.
That phrase does so much heavy lifting.
It really does.
Okay, so let's break that down. Why lovely?
Because for that brief time in that conversation with no one, he says it was the first time in a year he felt he was having a real conversation. He felt like himself again.
That's a huge statement. He's been talking to friends, family, but those weren't real.
He clarifies that he appreciates them, but they can't draw that specific Daniel out. They get widower Daniel or friend Daniel. Only Natalie could pull out Natalie's Daniel.
Yeah.
So talking to her memory let him resurrect that part of himself. That's the lovely part.
And the terrible part.
The terrible part is the crash. When the illusion breaks, you open your eyes, the room is empty, and the silence rushes back in. It highlights the void just as much as it fills it.
He calls it mildly cathartic, which feels so restrained.
It is. But I think it shows he's finding these small pockets of survival. He's not fixing his grief. He's just finding a way to breathe.
It brings us back to that question of sanity versus survival.
And I'd argue it's a necessary mechanism. The brain resists abrupt endings. When a neural pathway, like daily interaction with a spouse, is severed, the brain tries to bridge the gap. Talking to the object is the brain's way of softening that blow.
But he knows he has to stop eventually.
He does. He says soon he'll have to set aside the ritual of the light on, light off. He knows he can't do this for 10 years.
And he admits stopping feels like a betrayal.
Yeah.
He uses the word dishonor.
That's such a heavy burden. The idea that your own healing could be an insult to the person you lost.
If I stop crying, does it mean I didn't love them enough?
Exactly. If I take the photo off the bureau, am I erasing her? It implies that our pain is the only proof of our love left.
And letting go of the pain feels like letting go of the love. He says he'll explore that in a future chapter, Unsent Letters.
Which sounds like another deep dive for us, maybe.
Absolutely. But here, he leaves us in that tension, the comfort of the ritual versus the knowledge that it can't last forever.
It's unresolved, which feels very true to grief, doesn't it? There's no neat bow.
So if we have to distill this for the listener, what is the big takeaway here?
I think the takeaway is that we need to be kinder to the irrational folks of our grief. We try to logic our way out of sadness. We tell ourselves, she's gone, talking to a picture is stupid, I need to move on.
We pathologize it.
We do. But Astoria shows us these rituals serve a functional purpose. They preserve identity. They let us access parts of ourselves that are otherwise locked away.
So it's not about being crazy. It's about maintenance.
Exactly. Maintenance of the self. If talking to a piece of glass helps you access the version of you that felt loved and understood, then that object is more than glass. It's a key. It's a tool. And you shouldn't feel ashamed for using it.
It reminds us grief isn't just about the person who died. It's about the person left behind, trying to figure out who they are now.
That's the critical piece. We mourn them, but we also mourn us, the us that no longer exists. And sometimes you have to talk to an empty room just to remind yourself that you are still in there.
It makes you think how many people are out there with these secret rituals. Maybe it's texting a phone number that's been disconnected.
Or keeping a voicemail saved and listening to it every Sunday.
Or just saying good morning to the empty passenger seat in the car. It's all the same thing.
It is. It's the human refusal to let love just vanish.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final thought. Astoria asks himself, I'm talking to no one, or am I?
And that's the real question, isn't it? If the conversation changes how you feel, if it alters your brain chemistry enough to give you comfort, are you really talking to no one? Or are you talking to the part of them that lives inside your own head?
It's something to mull over. If we talk to no one to keep a part of ourselves alive, is it really a delusion?
Or is it the ultimate survival hack? After reading this, I think I know the answer.
I think so too. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's heavy stuff, but sometimes the heavy stuff is what lifts us up.
Well said.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Take care of yourselves.